Hello peeps, Jordan is Great 505 here. Today I wanted to talk about something that's been on my mind for the past year. Or I should say, for the longest of time, really. I've had to come to the conclusion that I didn't want to come to, but it's the truth. Five Nights at Freddy's never had a good story. It never had, good frickin' lore. We kind of all made it up. Now, I know the people who are into FNAF are going to be like, are you crazy? What do you mean? FNAF has an amazing lore with amazing story. Now, please just hear me out before you type your comment. Ask yourself this, what actually happens in the first 3 games, for example, in FNAF? What actually happened? In FNAF 1, you survive 5 nights and you get a page. In FNAF 2, you also just survive 5 nights, and then you get a paycheck, but in between the nights there's these weird cutscenes. In FNAF 3, there's actually cutscenes that kind of actually tell a story, which is pretty good. That's better. But you see the problem here. The average person who plays FNAF is gonna frickin' play through the game and not understand a single thing, because there literally is no fucking story unless you look for it for yourself. The average person, the average gamer, is going to play through FNAF 1, and they're not going to see any of those hidden lore secrets that give a story. Most of these scenes you see where they say it's me, or the lore, or the FNAF 2 minigames, they only happen by a percentage of chance. You're not going to understand the story by just playing the game normal. That's not good storytelling. A good story will give you the game. It will frickin' let you play through it. I shouldn't have to watch fucking game theory to understand what just happened. I shouldn't have to look through all the secrets and kind of reevaluate the evidence to see what the story is. That's just not good storytelling. And even with these hints, pretty much the story you get is that, oh, 5 kids got killed here, this purple guy is behind it, and then he gets springlocked. That's kind of the story of it all. You guys can probably see the issue here. Most people aren't going to know what the FNAF lore is because when they play through the games does a bad job at telling it. They do a bad job, and it's always so vague and unclear about it too. And I get it. Some stories are left up to interpretation, but it just comes to the point where it just comes off as nothing's set in stone. And this is the problem with the FNAF lore for me. Everyone, if you ask anyone, just your friends or anyone who knows FNAF, ask them what they think the FNAF story is, they will always give you a different answer. That is not good lore. They shouldn't be giving me different fucking answers to what the frickin' FNAF lore is. They shouldn't be telling me sister location takes place in the future. They shouldn't be telling me that it also takes place in the 80s. That they give you different answers for each frickin' thing. Having people debate on what is what in your lore is not good. That's why the FNAF lore is so freaking messed up nowadays. And this video is kind of going to be like, this is exactly why Security Breach is in the place it's in. This is why the modern FNAF games are in the place it's in. Because this entire story was built on freaking sand. It was built on sand instead of a steady foundation. And now we are surprised that suddenly we have an encyclopedia that releases and nothing makes sense. It's because everyone will give you different answers to what the lore is, because there are no clear answers. I will say the story with FNAF 1 to 3, it's pretty decent. You can, when you actually understand it, and you actually can put everything together, it's pretty decent, but at the same time, it's it's just like a simple story. It's not like something so in-depth as all the fans make it out to be. And I get it. It's because the entire appeal is that you have to solve it yourself. But at the same time, that's kind of the problem later on. Now, I have been omitting mentioning FNAF 4 so far. And that's because FNAF 3 was supposed to be the end of the FNAF franchise. But people bitched about it not being scary. And FNAF fans at the time wanted more. And the thing is FNAF 3 wasn't as liked as it is nowadays. I know everyone looks back fondly on it, but when it launched, people were very divided about it, because You know, it's the same thing as the last two games, pretty much. Except they're just one animatronic. Their jump scares are crappy. And Scott didn't want to end the game on the low note. That's what he said in the Doco interview, if I recall correctly. It was one of those interviews. He said that he didn't want to end the game on a low note, the whole entire franchise, so he made FNAF 4. The problem is the story kind of wrapped up in FNAF 3, because you had everything concluded, so where the hell were you supposed to take it? Well, you could make a prequel showing what Fredbear's was all about, and maybe showing the Bite of 87. But that's the problem. FNAF 2 already took place in 87. That was supposed to be the whole thing. And that's when I think Scott realized, holy shit, I already showed... Fredbear was already a thing, wasn't really that mentioned. It was an old restaurant mentioned by Phone Guy in FNAF 2. FNAF 4 was being hyped up to be the showcase of the Bite of 87. That was the whole point of FNAF 4 here. That's what it was being hyped up to be, but when I think Scott realized that you can't really have it take place in 87, because that's when FNAF 2 took place, he had to retcon the Bite of 87. So it was no longer the Bite of 87, it was the Bite of 83. So, what happens when you retcon a story silently, because you don't want to spoil anything, and you make Fredbear the one who did the Bite of 87? Well, that's where the problem comes in. When fans play your game and they realize, okay, what the hell, this doesn't make any sense. What is the story here? Why are these animatronic nightmares? There's two frickin' children that are crying. Who's frickin' Michael? Who's this guy? You know, you can't frickin'... It's all over the place because you couldn't really take FNAF anywhere after 3. You couldn't really do anything to, like, continue off of 3 or to have a good prequel to it. Because if you're trying to do it about the Bite of 87, you have to retcon it. And then and if you wanted it to be about Fredbear's too. So that's exactly what Scott did. He retconned the Bite of 87 to be the Bite of 83. And that's where the problems arise, because they're like, okay, I thought this was the Bite of 87. So like, everyone was confused when it launched because the story made no sense. I mean, the gameplay was fun because it was scary and stuff. You know, you had to listen to breathing, which forced you to, like, do it. Well, PewDiePie didn't like it, but he was being an asshole. But the point is, the reason why FNAF's 4 story is all over the place is because everything was pretty much solved after 3, and Scott tried to frickin' expand on things, but it got all messed up because there really was no story to begin with. Because, like it's just like, it's hard to build off of a story that's built off a stand, you know? It's all vague. It's all, there's no clear answers, so when you try to build stuff on it, it makes things more confusing. So that's when Sister Location came to be more of a simple story, which I get it's more better because it's, you know, it's just Baby manipulating you the whole time, and, you know, it kind of, I think that's a pretty decent story in itself. But then you have, like, Afton making an appearance for the first time. Now, is Afton's name ever dropped in FNAF Sister Location? You know, the purple guy's name? How do we even know it's the purple guy? There's no way you can tell if you just play the games. The only way you can tell is if you read the book, which leads us to our next problem. Scott made these books as their own, like, little universe, right? He made them as their own frickin' universe. And he said that these books can be used, like, they can be used to fill in the blanks for stuff that doesn't make sense in the current lore. So, the only way you'll know what the purple guy's name is if you read the fucking books. So people call him Afton now. Like, these came out, like, after FNAF 4, I think. It was somewhere near there. But it's just like, people shouldn't have to read a fucking book to learn that information. You should be teaching it in the game. This is a Halo 5 move, where you have to frickin' read all these dumbass books to learn the fucking lore here, to learn what's going on. You see the frickin' problem? And Halo fans hated that shit. They hated that shit in 2015, where you have to read a fucking book to understand what happens in the next game, what happened between Halo 4 and 5. You shouldn't have to read a fucking book to understand some, like, missing links to the information. That's not good storytelling. And maybe I'm getting lore and storytelling mixed up a bit here, but it's like I said, this is exactly why FNAF's lore isn't good. Because it was built off nothing. Really, like I said, what happens in the first 3 games? It's all a bunch of jumbled frickin' skeleton parts that people try to put together in hopes of something being good. The FNAF lore is like a fucking Spinosaurus. Scott had an idea for what the FNAF lore is. Let's just say it's the Spinosaurus. And then he kills it and, puts it, he kills it, so, as the god would do to the Spinosaurus. Now its bones are being spread out all over the place, all over the games. Now people have to reconstruct it. They have to try and see what works, and they're going to keep revisioning it over and over, and it's always going to be wrong. That's kind of my frickin' interpretation, because he just scattered all the bones of a story about people have to put it together themselves, and most of the time it keeps turning out wrong each time new information comes out. I just had to make a dinosaur reference there, because that's the best way I can fucking put it into terms for people. Now, with fucking, what is it called again? Yeah, Freddy Fazbear's Pizzeria Simulator. That was kind of the way for Scott to kind of wrap up the mess he made with FNAF 4's lore. Kind of to put an end to that stuff, so he has characters who are mentioned from the books appear, Henry being at the end, which we only know that from the books, remember? You never learn that really in the games. And he kind of just, burns down the pizzeria. The character you're playing as, which we assume is Michael, it's never really stated, dies of them, And then FNAF VR comes, and it has to be canon for some reason. But you see the problem here? You guys can see the problem here. Of course, I'm skimming over a lot of the details, but that's because they're just all disconnected from each other. A lot of this stuff happens in mini-games that don't happen directly within the story. It's all disconnected, and it's up to us to frickin' put it all together. And that's the problem when you try to make anything relating to FNAF in the future. The reason Security Breach's lore is bad is because the entire lore underneath it was built up for frickin' nothing. Most of our lore interpretations are probably incorrect. Because, let's be honest, I think it's pretty much clear. I think FNAF 4 retconned a lot of what we knew about the stories. And that's why later on, we're frickin', being like, what the hell, why the hell is the story going this direction? It's because a lot was changed, and we had no idea about it. And I think what we have to realize here is that it's just, there never really was a story to begin with. There are no, sit-down answers. There are no frickin', it's all vague. So now we just don't understand anything. And this is the problem when you don't have a set-in definition for anything. Honestly, I think we built up all of our frickin' lore from what Game Theory says, because they pretty much wrote it all for us. And to be honest, I'm not putting the blame on Scott either. We all have to remember, frickin' FNAF was made because people criticized Chippers and Sons for being scary. That's why it was made. It wasn't made... Scott didn't expect it to become this big thing. So, can we really fault him for not, making the story that clear? I'm sorry if I'm stuttering. This is just so fucking... This video is not supposed to be an attack on Scott. It's not, because I've seen so much of that shit recently with fucking people making him out to be a fucking evil cons man who just wanted to milk FNAF. No, guys, he made fucking FNAF 4 because we as kids fucking asked for it. It's your best interest as a businessman to freaking follow what your fans say. Because as soon as I didn't listen to my YouTube subscribers and I just made whatever I wanted, they all left my channel. So, I'm trying to freaking make FNAF content. But you get my point. We just have to remember, FNAF 1, the story for FNAF was probably made up along the way. That's what we have to realize here. There probably wasn't really a good idea of what it was supposed to be, and it was probably the reason why it's all jumbled and messy. And I feel like we need to stop gaslighting ourselves into thinking it was this big freaking horrifying deep mass, because it just really wasn't. I see so many people within the fandom acting like FNAF was this scary, edgy, gory, freaking scary thing. But the thing is with horror, your mind will fill in a lot of the blanks for you. So, the story bits were there, and we kind of just filled them in for our own heads. And the odds are is that with all the frickin' stuff that happened later in the lore, a lot of it just became inaccurate. That's why when you have an encyclopedia written by many people, nothing makes sense to us FNAF fans because there really is no set and definition of FNAF lore. It's all been vague. There have been no real answers given. So the odds are for this new encyclopedia that was made, the odds are is that either this is the actual lore of everything by Scott, and the reason why we don't accept it as lore is because everything we thought was canon was not canon, and we just all made it up in our heads from assumptions because Scott never made clear answers, or it's because of the fact that there's just multiple writers, and because FNAF lore is so jumbled and messy, if you ask anyone their definition of the FNAF lore, they'll always give you a different answer. It's either those two possibilities, and both are equally as bad as it seems. But yeah, we need to stop pretending like there was something so big and grandiose here, because the truth is that there just really wasn't a good story, and I don't fault Scott for it. Obviously, he didn't intend for FNAF to be big, and he kind of had to make it up along the way, and, it's hard to frickin' write a story when you just have, when you just get it blown up out of nowhere, and you didn't intend for it to be really more than what it happened, And I'm not trying to be like everyone else, because I know in the last couple of years, everyone has been so negative towards FNAF, and I feel like some of it has been unnecessary, and it's all happened since Theft King got fucking popular. I'll fucking say that. That's why in my video I said he kind of ruined the FNAF community, because ever since he blew up in popularity, it's been nothing but freaking negativity. And I get it. For the past, 7 years FNAF was around, it was so positive. If you even say what I'm saying right now, back in 2015, you'd get death threats for it, because people couldn't handle the fucking fact that you criticized the FNAF lore. But nowadays, we're just so overly negative towards Scott or the fucking FNAF lore. And I'm not saying, and I'm not trying to be, super negative in this video. I'm just trying to explain why I think the FNAF lore why I think Security Breach doesn't have good lore, why a lot of the books don't seem to have good lore. It's because, in my opinion, there just really wasn't anything there. We kind of just all filled in the blanks with our own kind of imaginations, and that was kind of the magic of it. And that we shouldn't really expect the story to be good when we kind of just made it up ourselves, it's just I see so many people in comment sections of videos talking about FNAF lore saying that there was a downfall. It's there really was no downfall. It's just that it's becoming more clear that there's problems with this lore that we just chose to ignore before because we just didn't look at FNAF critically before, and we just didn't really care because we just made it up ourselves, that was kind of the appeal of theorizing over things. And the thing is, I will say, one of the worst effects of this all is the fact that it's spread onto other indie game devs to the point where, or even AAA devs at this point, where you have fucking Poppy Playtime selling NFTs to learn fucking lore. Lore that should be in their fucking game. But no, it's in the fucking NFT. I just want this trend of having to read a book outside the game to die. I'm sick and tired of it, dude. And I don't, like I said, I don't fault Scott for it, because, that's kind of what the FNAF appeal is now anyways. But the problem is that good storytelling doesn't require me to read books outside the games to understand it. Good storytelling doesn't require me to watch a game theory video to understand the lore. And I think that's the problem. Like I said, just vague definitions, the fucking FNAF lore being like a fucking... Honestly, it's kind of like an opinion, or maybe... It's kind of like an opinion. You'll just always ask someone and they'll tell you a different answer. So yeah, it's just something I wanted to vent out a lot, because I just... it's just it just bothers me because I see so many people being like, why the hell is it so downfall? It's like it's always been like this, guys. It's always been like this. Because I've seen people also pretend FNAF was this scary and edgy fucking game and it's all for kids friendly now. It's like FNAF really wasn't that fucking bad. Like there's like 3 times I think 4 or 3 times you actually see gore in the series. Like I think it's always been kind of a for everyone game, you know. I don't think it's always been like a super terrifying game. I mean, Scott is a fucking Christian. What do you guys expect, man? Besides, like, to the people acting like there's so much doom and gloom, that FNAF will just be a kids-friendly indie horror game, there's the fucking fanverse. And one of the ideas I had for FNAF 4 is that instead of it focusing on Freddy's, focus on another brand. And that's kind of what Five Nights at Candy's is, and it's now a part of the fanverse. And you want to know something about Five Nights at Candy's? And Pop Goes? They both take place in a universe where FNAF ended at free. So for the people who wanted that, you have that in the fanverse, which is officially being freaking budgeted by Scott. You have that. You can focus on that and put your love into that. You don't have to be so doom and gloom, because we have good things coming out. And if you're not happy with things, just make fan games. That's what I did. But to be fair, I made them in 2015. This was before the doom and gloom days of FNAF, and when we were shitting on everything. But the point is, that's kind of my message here. It's like, you know, things may be shit, but you can do things to, you know, ignore that. And, you know, focus on the good, you know? Yeah, like I said, I always thought, you know, it'd be cool if FNAF 4 just focused on a different restaurant, because you kind of wrapped up everything with Freddy's, and, you know, it's kind of what Five Nights at Candy's is. And honestly, I don't really agree with the whole notion that FNAF should have ended at free. Like, if that happened, we wouldn't be here talking about it. We wouldn't have any of the sister location, any of the nightmares, any of the Freddy Fazbear's Pizza City. We wouldn't have so many good things in this community if it ended at free. Or even at freaking Freddy Fazbear's Pizza Simulator. FNAF VR was good. Like, I know a lot of you look at it from a lore perspective. But if you're someone who plays it for the gameplay, like me, then you will... Because I know a lot of people don't actually play the FNAF games. They just play the fucking... They just watch YouTubers play, and they are interested in the lore. Which is completely fine, but you also have to look at it from a gameplay perspective. Because FNAF VR is like... It's not a bad game because the lore is messy with Glitch Trap. You also have to look at it from a gameplay perspective, which it freaking recreates the original games in VR pretty good. I will say I don't really like the Steel Wool models. I feel like they're lower in quality to things. They get some things inaccurate. But for what they are, they're pretty decent. And yeah, I think that's kind of my message for this. Let's just stop pretending like freaking... Let's just all stop pretending the FNAF 4 was always this big freaking story that was always planned out. And let's stop trying to freaking fault Scott for things and trying to make him look like a villain. Because I doubt he really had the intention... Like, the dude gives a lot of his money to fucking charity. You really think he's some fucking greedy guy? Like, you think he's some greedy guy that was just milking FNAF? Nah, he literally made it because we as kids asked for more. You guys have to remember, when we were kids, we were always asking for this shit. Like, me, myself included. We have to remember this. Yeah. Like I said, that's kind of what I wanted to end the video on. It's kind of, I don't really have a lot of editing. Like, I don't want to fucking edit a video talking negatively about FNAF. I just really, you know, it's kind of not really, you know, it's not something I really want to do and spend my time on, because I just kind of want to talk about it and, you know, have my feelings on it. Because I've seen other people make videos about why they don't like the FNAF lore and why it's always kind of been messy, and, you know, and they've done it before, so I thought I would freaking state my thoughts, and, yeah. So, yeah, thank you for watching if you watched this far ahead. I really appreciate it for you guys hearing me out and hearing my thoughts. I know this is kind of this might be a hot take. Recently, things have been really negative in the FNAF community, so I doubt it's a hot take anymore, but yeah, I'm just saying, this is how I thought about the FNAF lore. Thank you guys for watching, Yeah, I appreciate it. I'll be making more videos about FNAF soon, you know?